Do you have herpes on your lip?
Where?
No, maybe it's just a crumb. Never mind.
Where? You have French herpes? That's even worse than regular herpes.
Welcome to the Dewey Society Film Podcast, where we talk about movies and preparation for our annual Dewey Society Excellence in Film Awards, which is in February, so it's coming up. We are actually in our general nominations stage right now. So if you want to nominate your favorite films from this year, go to our website, deweysociety.com. Anyway, I'll do more of that spiel later, but welcome back. It's been like a few weeks. We
took a hiatus. Because, everyone's got stuff going on. Finals, end of the year prepping for holidays, going on trips.
Going to France, like this motherfucker over here.
France made some good films.
That's a good point.
There's some good French films. France and the United States.
Speaking of France, my name is Isabella, and my favorite movie is Die Hard. 'Tis the season.
Yeah. My name is Max, and my favorite movie is Auntie Mame with Rosalind Russell, the original.
So we both have Christmas movies.
Mm-hmm.
All right, speaking of France, like I said, the film we're talking about today... Hold on, Max is eating some cashews. Film we're talking about today, it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes this year in 2022, which we will get into because that's a very controversial thing, I think. Mm-hmm. But what is our movie for today?
This week, we are discussing Triangle of Sadness, directed by Ruben Östlund. The synopsis of this is: models Carl and Yaya are invited to a luxury cruise with a rogues gallery of super rich passengers. At first, all appears Instagrammable, but we should bleep some of that because that basically spoils like the whole movie.
Yeah, why would they put that as the synopsis?
It doesn't even do the first act of the film. It doesn't even talk about it.
Yeah.
The movie is in 3 acts, which like triangle.
Oh, so true. I didn't even get that.
Yeah.
I didn't even really think about the title.
The title is kind of cringe.
Why?
Well, one, like it gets name dropped in the first scene. The Triangle of Sadness.
Does it?
Yeah, he's like, you need to relax your triangle of sadness, and it's like the area between your eyebrows for models.
I forgot that.
But I don't think that it accurately captures what the movie is like, and I think that the marketing as a whole for this movie was really bad.
I disagree. The marketing for this movie that I saw was like everyone hyped it up like big time. I think because it got such like a big award season run. But I kept seeing like footage of like them on the boat or whatever. I was like, what the hell is this movie? I don't even know what it's about. So maybe in that way it was marketed badly, but...
There's been a lot of marketing.
Yes.
But I feel like I had, based on the cover, based on the ads that I saw for the movie, based on the title, like, I didn't have any idea what the movie was, and any idea that I did have was not accurate to, like, when I saw it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Anyway, this film mostly stars actors who I didn't know other than Woody Harrelson.
Yeah, and he's like
hardly in it.
He's super overhyped in all the marketing.
I know. Well, actually, maybe.
He's at the center of the cover of
the film. I mean, he's
the
captain of the ship.
Right, but he only really has 2 scenes of dialogue.
Yeah.
In a 2.5-hour film.
Yeah. Anyway, so it takes place mainly on a cruise, like a luxury cruise line, and it follows like this Instagram model basically, and her boyfriend, and it's just kind of about, mainly it's surrounding their relationship, but also there's like aspects of, like the people who work on the cruise line and like what their role is in this whole luxury cruise line. I think as a premise it intrigued me. There's a lot about influencers, going, I don't know, like, it's interesting to see it in the form of, like, a movie, where it's, like, kind of, like a, I compared this in my mind a lot to The Menu, which, was actually our last episode, I think. Oh my god, that was so long ago. You know, how they both, like, take these aspects of, like, luxury society, or, like, the ultra-rich, and kind of destroy them. But I think with this film, well, maybe I won't get into that yet, but what do you think?
I thought this film was really interesting all the way through, basically. Like, throughout the movie, I didn't know where it was going.
Yeah.
And I liked that because I liked the individual scenes on their own merit. And I liked sort of the complexity of the character development in all the different ways that it could go. Like, I feel like there's a lot of stories where you kind of know, based on what it is, just, like, how the rest of the movie is going to go. Based on what you learn about the characters, like, kind of, even if they have some amount of depth, it's very surface level.
Yes.
But all of the characters and all the interactions between the characters created such a variety of possible stories, and I think the one that they told was just enjoyable on the merits of being a story on its own. And then there's also this aspect in the movie of, like, what's going on metaphorically, like, what is this movie talking about? And I think that is something that you can think about and that you can sort of, like, make connections with, but it's not like beating you over the head with one specific message that it wants you to have. There's, like, a lot of things that you can read into the film. And I think that's nice. And I appreciate that about the film. And so on that alone, I really liked it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's trying to say, like, it very much reads to me as a critique of, like, the ultra-rich. Because it is so comedic and, like, how, you know, she's always, like, taking selfies or, like, stuff like that. And it's, like when the people on the cruise ship, like, the cruise members, just, like, ask for, like, random things or, like, ask for random suggestions, and the workers have to be like,
yes.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Like, it's so comedically done. But my problem is, I was talking with my friend Caleb about this movie, and he pointed out, like, this movie won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, which is, like, one of the most prestigious awards in film.
Perhaps the most prestigious award in film.
And so, seeing that this film wants to be a critique of, like, the ultra-rich, I don't know what it says if, like, the ultra-elites are, like, loving this movie, even though it critiques... Like, how good is the critique if the people they're critiquing actually like the movie?
Yeah.
You know, so, I don't know. I thought it was an interesting point in a way that I think I'm going to continue comparing it to the menu, but I think in a way that the menu got right and this one didn't as much. I don't know.
Well, are those people the ones at Cannes? I actually don't know. Like,
the people who vote on
like,
what gets the
are
awards?
they the type of people who can buy a yacht and forget that they bought it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know that much.
I'm sure they can, you know. Can.
You think so?
I'm sure.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I actually just have no idea how Cannes works and who votes on what. So, yeah, I believe you. Do you think there's some, like, level of, like, cultural masochism that like, elite people have? I think that's sort of, like, drilled into people, especially with, like, the self-criticism, like, culture of the early 2010s. Like, with Bo Burnham, and also, you know, like, people get some sort of perverse pleasure in saying, like, yeah, I'm a bad person, and, like, you know, who I am is you know, is harmful, and then they donate a bunch of money or whatever.
But I think I had the same problem with Bo Burnham. This is why I don't like Bo Burnham. It's like, you're saying, oh, I do this, and so I know myself enough to acknowledge the fact that I do this and it's wrong and it's bad, but I'm saying it as a joke, and so it's fine that I acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But you're not actually fixing the problem. And I think to be successful in a critique of that, like, you have to... There can't be that, like, level of, oh, I realize it, so it's okay. I don't know. I feel like I'm word vomiting, but...
No, I think that makes sense. I just wonder if that was part of what the people who voted on it liked.
Probably.
You know?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, how do you think the menu is different?
I think the menu is, like, it's so camp and it's so, like, in your face about its messaging, about, like, how... Maybe it's not, because we had very different opinions on the messaging of the film.
Yeah.
But just, like, on the fact that it's getting, like, worse reviews. And it is, like... It's a cheesy movie. It's, like, a cheesy thriller. Where, you know, they're just killing people. Like, this one felt more based in reality. Yeah. And that one took it a level up, you know.
I agree.
Yeah.
But also,
Yeah.
Do you think that that means that, like, a good movie can't be, like, a movie that's good at critiquing capital can only be good if people don't like it? Like,
I think it says some. All I'm saying is it says something if the people they're critiquing like the movie.
yeah, that's,
You know?
I see that. I think that this and The Menu pair really well together.
Yeah.
Like, this movie, because they're both interested in critiquing, like, incredibly rich, like, this situation that we have where some people have enough money that they can, like, buy an entire life, essentially.
Yeah.
And also, like hide the fact that they did that. But The Menu, I think, is interested in the relation between wealth and art. And
Yeah.
this movie is interested in the relation between wealth and gender.
Yeah, I don't think the gendered aspects of the film are as explicit as
Yeah, they're not.
the art is in The Menu, you know?
Yeah.
But I do see that reading.
That's something that clearly the movie cares about. So maybe we can call the wall here. Say, if you think that the things that we're talking about are interesting, I would go see it. I would say, like, trigger warning.
It's disgusting.
It's a really gross film. So
It's
don't watch
gross.
it if you're, like, already a little nauseated.
Yeah.
It's
Be in the
not
right
a horror
headspace.
film.
Maybe don't eat food while watching it.
I would not eat food while watching it. Yeah, do not eat food while you're watching it.
Yeah.
If you can stomach that, you should probably watch it just to, like, have a...
If you can stomach it.
If you can stomach it, you should watch it just to, like,
Yeah.
see this movie that is clearly important in the history of film, only in the fact that it won this really prestigious award,
Yeah.
if anything else, you know.
Sure.
But let's call the spoiler wall, and maybe we can
Yeah.
talk more specifically about how the movie feels about capital and gender.
Okay.
Okay, so I think the first two scenes are really interesting. First,
The one in the restaurant?
so the one where he's being interviewed by the guy, by the...
Yeah.
And it's like, are you wearing a grumpy brand or a happy brand? And
Yes.
do you remember that?
Yeah.
That was one of the two scenes in this movie that I thought was, like, perfect.
Yeah.
The dialogue in it and the acting was just so hilarious. Like, you're wearing Balenciaga. Look down on your consumer. Oh wait, I misread the label. Oh, it's H&M.
Yeah.
Everyone's
Yeah.
happy.
Oh, it's Gap. It's Old Navy. Yeah.
That was
it's so good. Yeah.
But he mentions in that scene, and this is why I'm bringing it up. He mentions that male models get paid like a quarter of female models on average in this industry,
Okay.
and that's interesting. It's only interesting really insofar as that it's the opposite. It's the opposite of, like, every other industry.
Yeah.
That almost always men get paid way more than women do.
Right. Yeah.
And then that sort of comes up because in the next scene, the main two characters,
Yes.
Yaya and Carl,
Yes.
are at dinner and they're dating, and they're both, like, models. They're both professional models.
Yeah.
They're, like, sort of talking past each other a little bit. It doesn't seem like she's super engaged.
Yeah.
And then he brings up that she had offered to pay the bill, but she had said she had just thanked him for the dinner.
Yeah.
And so he felt, like, obligated to pay the bill.
Yeah.
And so this spirals into this huge fight between them. And I think that was interesting because they sort of have this continual discussion about, like, argument about gender and gendered roles with money. That he insists is not about money. That he insists is about her and him, like, listening to each other and having a relationship. I was talking to Vera, and she believed that it really wasn't about money, that this conversation they were having was really about her listening to him.
Yeah.
I did not read that the first time I watched the movie. How did you perceive that scene?
Yeah, I think I agree with Vera on that. I didn't so much perceive it as, like, a money thing. I don't know. Like, he clearly feels, or to me, he feels, like, emasculated by her making more money than him. But at the same time, it does feel like he feels that she doesn't listen to him. And I think he's projecting, like, his emasculation onto, oh, like, this relationship isn't working because she's not listening to me. Like, I think there's levels of both.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I think that both of those are accurate.
Yeah.
That it's simultaneously that she really sees him as, like, clout. She says that in the third scene. That like she basically sees him as like something, as an object which is useful for her because she's not just a model, but she's an influencer as well.
Exactly.
But it's also that like he wouldn't be upset about like the paying for the check if he were financially well situated in the first place. Like that wouldn't be the thing that triggers this for him.
Yeah.
You know, it might have been something else, like how she's always on her phone or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
His yelling about how it's not about the money, I thought was like pretty frightening and also like very disturbing, because it clearly is. Like he is telling himself that it's not about the money in a way to protect his own masculinity. It's not about the money, yeah.
He just want to make the world dance.
He just wants to make the world dance. But in fact it is. And he's telling himself that it's not because he can't admit to himself that on some level like he is financially less well off than her.
Yeah.
And so he has to continue to affirm that it's not about money because there's some part of it that's not. Although it's only an issue because it is about the money.
Yeah, I think they feed each other.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Anyway, that's like the entirety of the first act, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. And so then they're on the boat. I was intrigued by the like crew workers and like what they brought to the plot, but at the same time, like I don't know, there was something weird to me about how they were portrayed, and there was a clear like distinction that was made in the film between the crew's like workers who were like our hospitality workers and the service workers who like cleaned and cooked. There was a clear distinction. Like remember when they were like screaming like, what were they screaming? Money. It was something like that.
That is the most inhuman scene in the entire. It's the most cartoonish scene in the entire film. It's like if money.
Yeah.
You know, if
it was scary. Like it got to a point, and I think in that scene, if I'm remembering correctly, they like cut to like the people in the kitchen, and they're like, okay.
They're just like standing there, like we have to cook.
Yes. Yeah. You know. So I wish they built on that more because I was curious about it, and I'm always more, you know, with the menu. I found the relationship between customer and worker like very interesting to look at. But I think, I don't know, in this film, I don't know. I wanted more out of it. I think I wish there was more said in terms of that.
Yeah, that sort of like marks this other thing that I simultaneously like and dislike about the film, which is that it is really vague in what it wants to say.
Yeah.
Like it, I don't think, I mean personally, I don't think that there was a huge problem with it not having a clear position about it, not wanting to explore in depth one thing, in particular.
Yeah.
In fact, I kind of liked that it didn't need to make itself an allegory and that it was just a story on its own.
Sure.
But yeah, I do see that that's like, it's frustrating when it touches upon something that you really want to see explored.
Yeah.
And doesn't expound on that. There's a couple characters on the yacht. So Yaya and Carl are on the yacht, on the cruise. But there's a ton of like interesting characters that you're introduced to up there. There's like this Russian like manure salesman, who's like super old and kind of like weird and creepy. There's this couple, a British couple, who they introduce themselves and they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" He says, "Oh, we develop solutions that get used in promoting democracy across the world." And he says, "Oh, what do you do? Like, what do you develop?" And the guy goes, "Oh, we develop, tools that are used by private and government entities." And then he says, "What tools do you make?" He says, "Oh, the most popular one that we make is I think it's like throwable explosive devices." And then his wife leans over and goes, "He means grenades."
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. The dialogue in this movie I thought was really funny. Like the way that it was written on an individual scene level was just incredibly humorous. I
want to say I do really like the sound design in this movie because like every scene on the ship, it all felt like so like there was always an echo and there was always like a distance that was felt. I don't know, everything just, like, you could hear the waves. There was, like, almost no music, if I'm remembering correctly. And it just felt uneasy in a way that, like, led up to, I think, the biggest, like, the start to, like, the grossness that was unexpected, totally unexpected, at least for me.
The start of that is this woman who's sitting at the... So all the staff are told, if someone asks you anything, whether it's, like, a unicorn or for you to, like, cut your arm off, you say yes.
Yeah.
And so this woman walks up, or is sitting in a hot tub, and she gets the service worker to come over to her, and she's like, I just had a realization. All of us are human. All these distinctions between us, you know, where you're a worker and I'm being serviced, like, they're just silly. So what I want is for you to relax. So get in the hot tub and take a break. And you can see, like, the cogs turning in her head where she's like, I have to say yes.
Yeah.
But I also have to continue working because that's my job.
Yeah.
And she, like, can't... She's, like, breaking this person. And then the woman, like, changes her mind and she's like, all right, I've decided I want all of you to take a break. Go for a swim. And she asks for every single staff member to get on the water slide and slide into the ocean so that they can enjoy a break.
Yeah.
Which, in fact, is, like, super intensive and none of them want to do.
Right.
And it also, like, sets off this event where, like, the hostess calls the kitchen and is like, hey, we need all of you to come upstairs so you can take a water slide. Yeah. And they say, oh, well, the food is going to spoil. And she goes, don't worry about it. We'll fix it.
Yeah.
Did you notice that there was a song playing in the background when she called down to the kitchen?
No, it was a song.
It's the Internationale. It's the International Socialist and Workers' Anthem that's playing in the kitchen when she calls down to them.
Sure.
Before I realized how explicit this film was going to be, I thought that was, like, a funny nod.
Yeah.
But in fact, it becomes very explicit because the captain, who has been drunk for the entirety of the film, decides to host the captain's dinner on the one night where there's choppy water.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like, I was very confused about what the film was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, I was like, okay, this is just shit's in the fan, literally. And I mean, for those who are still listening, I hope you've seen the movie, but I'm pretty sure this scene where people are shitting, vomiting, coughing, falling over, drinking, lasts probably about 20 minutes or something. And it's not vague. You see everything.
I don't know how they did that practically.
I don't know how they did it.
Like, the vomit, there was so much vomit.
So much. And then, at a certain point, a pipe breaks in the ship, right? And all the sewage floods. It's
like,
nasty.
all the decks, yeah.
It is nasty film, nasty movie. I think the third act is when I was, like, the most shocked, because I hadn't seen any, like, footage or photos of this third act when they're on the island. I was like, what is this? And it becomes a Lord of the Flies. For real. It becomes, what's that? A Castaway. Like, what is going on? I didn't know where the movie was heading. I don't know what the messaging is at this point. I don't know what's happening. And, like, there's you get, like, a bunch of weird relationships between, like, crew people. I had no sense of time. Anyway.
I don't even know what to make of it.
Yeah.
Specifically, what I'm thinking of is the end of the second act, really, which is, like, while all the, like, throwing up and, like, diarrhea is happening, the captain and that Russian, like, manure salesman are having this, like, drunken argument about, like, capitalism and socialism, where the captain of the ship is a communist, and the manure salesman is a capitalist. Yeah. And they're, like, talking past each other, and they keep, like, quoting historical figures. The guy has, like, a bunch of Ronald Reagan quotes that he keeps pulling out. But I don't know what to make of that, and how that fits with the rest of the film, because the captain is immediately, like, killed. Anyway, I felt like that needed to preface sort of the last third of the film, which is where like Abigail was her name, this woman who worked on the ship, doing I think like cleaning the ship, is the only person on the island out of all of these rich people who can actually fish and make fire.
Yeah.
And so she ends up sort of controlling the societal structure that they've constructed on the island and using Carl basically as like a prostitute.
Yeah.
And he can't really say no because she's the only person who can like keep them alive.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like for me, a lot of the messaging got lost when they landed on the island. Like, it became so strange, and I was just confused. I don't know.
I don't think, yeah, like, and it's not even confusing in a plot way.
Yeah.
Like, the plot is very clear.
Yes.
The movie doesn't seem to have, like, a message.
Yeah.
That it wants to make explicit. I think there are themes in the film, but it doesn't have something that it necessarily wants to say, in particular, or that it cares enough to force upon the audience.
Yeah.
It's a real, like, thinker of a film. Like, it's a film that you think about afterwards and you notice little connections. And I don't know. I don't think that made me dislike it, but I can see how it's, like, you want it to say, like, to say something.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think a lot of it, there's a lot to be said, you know?
Oh, there
like,
is.
if you have this plot, these characters, this story, there's a lot that you can pull from it. And I wanted them to choose one direction, but they didn't choose any. To me, that's what it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was frustrating.
And they ended up just telling a story.
I guess. But it's so unrealistic that I think just telling a story isn't enough, you know?
Yeah, it's just this, like, weird fable that exists and sort of is thematically related to the unrest that everyone is feeling.
Mm-hmm. I think a fable is, like, a very apt description of this.
I think that, like, every single character has this moment of hypocrisy in the film.
Okay.
Where, like, I think it's most clear with that manure salesman.
Yeah.
Where once he gets on the island and Abigail is like, I get half the food and you all split the rest.
Yeah.
He's like, what happened to, or like, have you ever heard of this phrase, from each according to his abilities, to each according to his needs? Whereas previously he was literally like quoting Ronald Reagan.
Right.
He was like, the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money.
Yeah.
Margaret Thatcher. That was like a very obvious version. Mm-hmm. But I think that happens with like, what's his name? With Carl as well. He says that he loves Yaya, and then he's also like incredibly jealous of her, or of her desires of other men.
Yeah.
You know? And it happens with Yaya here, where when she was like the one who was desirable, she cared a lot, or she didn't really care that much about Carl, and then suddenly when he was the one who was desirable, she was very threatened by Abigail, who had more power than her, and who was like using her boyfriend as a prostitute. And I thought that was like a funny theme throughout the film that I don't think the film really wanted to make explicit, but it was definitely clear, and it was like something that all of them said. Or like the guy who said that he worked in the mailroom.
Yeah.
And it turns out that he was getting accused of being a pirate. And then at the very end, he's like, what if I were a pirate? You know, if I were a pirate, I would be making about, $30K per heist.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, 30K is nothing. Like all of them have this hypocrisy. And I thought that was funny.
Yeah. For sure.
That was the one thing that I really got out of the ending. And then at the end, what did you think of the very ending of the film?
So strange.
Is ambiguous. And I think that was a real misstep.
Okay, why? Say more.
I just thought that the film, there could have been a way to end the film in a way that was more emotionally impactful to me. So, what's her name? there's no falling action. If we're going back to like
Yeah.
6th grade, like they find out that the island that they're stranded on is actually like a boutique resort. And she, Yaya says like, Abigail, you know, we'll make life good for you when we get back to society. Like, you could be my assistant. And Abigail, like, is like, okay, very good. Let's just wait here. And like sneaks up behind her with a rock.
Yep.
And then it just cuts to Carl running through, like, out of breath, running through the woods with his face getting like cut by the branches, and like he just keeps running. And I think, you know, there's multiple interpretations of that ending. Like, did she kill Yaya? Did Yaya escape? Why is he running? Is he running from Abigail? Is he running to land, or like to civilization? Is he running because he heard Yaya scream, which was not one of my thoughts, but like was possible.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
there could have been, if they had actually shown her kill Yaya, I think that would have made the film better. It would have felt like there was some sort of like finality or conclusion, you know?
Yeah. To me, like, seeing the ending, I was like, oh, okay, this is just like a punchline that it took way too long to get to. It's like, you have these annoying celebrities and influencers and models and rich people, and they get stranded on an island. It turns into Lord of the Flies. Oh, just kidding. It's actually like a luxury resort island. Like, that to me, I was like, okay,
No, yeah.
chill out. That wasn't that good of a joke in the first place. And people, I guess I see why the premise of that could be interesting for producers to make this film, but I don't know. It didn't say enough for me.
I don't think that was the point of the, like, that joke was like just sort of an extra bit on the end of.
But it seemed so significant. I thought Yaya died. Maybe I missed something.
I mean, maybe, I think that's the most reasonable explanation of the film.
But like, still, like, okay, and that was my reaction. I was like, okay, and like, say more, do less.
It's not as simple as like rich people are bad, poor people are good.
Yeah, it's not.
Because like they could have done that with the, like, if they had made it and like Abigail was like keeping things fair and then the rich people were like trying to steal from her.
Yeah.
That would have been like a very simple, like a processed sugar type story, you know, where there's no thought you have to put into it. It's just like, this is bad, this is good.
Yeah.
And I think that would have made the movie terrible.
Yeah.
But what happened was like, when she gained power, she became this despotic,
Corrupted. Yeah.
like, capricious dictator.
Yeah.
And that I don't know if that was intended to talk about, like, to be allegorical for, you know, what happens after people take power.
Yeah.
You know, like, is that referential to, like, the Russian Revolution, for example, or, like, the Cuban Revolution?
I think, you know what, like, I think it's funny that they were placed, like, there's so many messages of socialism in this film that are, like, talked about in conversation.
Yeah.
Literally. And then they're put on an island where you could argue socialism would be possible, but instead of that, they kind of reconstruct this capitalistic and, like, authoritarian mindset that they were trying to perhaps, like, that one might think they might escape from on a luxury cruise. I don't know. I think that is interesting.
Yeah, very.
That, like, the notion of socialist models weren't even discussed when they got to the island. It was always, you know, reconstructing authoritarian states. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's really interesting, and that gets to a part, or something, one of the readings of the film that I actually like, and that makes me like it, which is that, like, it's not an attempt to say what should be. It seems like an attempt to describe something which is historically sort of the way that things turn out, which is imperfect.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, against all of people's ideals about how the world should be. The structures of how we structure our society are based on who can produce shelter and food and resources, who can produce what we need. It's the basis of how we construct societies is bargaining power and labor. Despite how we might want, we might say like, oh, if we could just escape the structures that exist now, we could create a perfect society. The result is that is a communist, anti-Marxist perspective. There's a line in the film where the captain yells, "Just to be clear, I'm not a communist, I'm a Marxist." And the difference there is that a Marxist believes that the structure of our society is determined by the relation between labor and ownership. The relation between the means of producing food and shelter and other goods that people need, and the people who do the labor that produces it. And the Marxist take is not that if we all could just get on an island, we could make the world a good place.
Right.
It's that we as a society need to construct a system of labor that creates a future history where people can own the results of their labor. I'm trying to like phrase this in a way that like
I think it
sounds
makes sense.
good, you know?
Yeah, people get it.
And
I think it makes sense.
I don't think it makes sense what I just said, to be clear.
All right.
But I think that that is something that the film that like I could see being valuable about the film, or I could see being something that the film is getting at as a whole, holistically.
Yeah. I think once we reach the stage of the podcast where we end up with just word vomiting, which is very apt for this movie, I think perhaps we should move on. So any last thoughts before ratings?
I go through these phases of like liking this movie and then disliking this movie.
Yeah.
You
said,
I don't got any more thoughts. Do you have any more thoughts?
No.
I feel like I have a lot more thoughts, but the movie does not lead to well-formed thoughts.
What'd you rate this movie?
4 stars.
Yeah, I think I gave it 4 as well. It was, it was a decent watch. Very pretty film. But, when you call a movie pretty, it's not the best thing in the world.
I started Pinocchio this morning, and I really enjoyed it so far, but I have not finished it, and so I would like to say, watch Pinocchio. Watch Pinocchio.
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. It's good.
Guillermo del Toro 10 years to make it. There's also like a short behind-the-scenes documentary. It's only like 30 minutes. But yeah, gotta love Guillermo. As a person who has seen the newest Pinocchio, pretty well done. I think it's like almost guaranteed best animation. It's stop motion, so it's beautiful. Anyway, my recommendation is All Quiet on the Western Front, which is it's a remake of, I guess it was a book and then a old movie, but it's entirely in German. I'm not the hugest fan of war movies. It did remind me a lot of 1917, if you liked that. Yeah, it felt very true. It's a hard watch, it's a war movie, so keep that in mind, but it's very well done. Like, one of my top movies for the year. So, that one is also on Netflix?
Yeah, so, like we mentioned at the top of the pod, be thinking about what categories, what movies you would like to nominate for all the different categories, because it is nomination season. You have until January 31st to put in all your nominations. Whatever movies you liked this year, go on dealweedsociety.com and submit those nominations, because we're very excited about this upcoming award season, and we're excited to hear all your thoughts.
Do you want a pillow or something?
I would love a pillow.